Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson,
I'm Carson Grubaugh.
Brandon Graham.
and welcome to Living the Line. We got another show and tell segment for you today, and Brandon, I'm going to pretend that it's your turn.
Um,
What do
well,
you got for us?
uh, something I was excited to show. I haven't seen many people talk about this, but they today we're going to talk about a Katsuhiro Otomo manga that has never been translated in English, and I assume will never be translated in English.
Yeah,
So,
shocking, huh?
yeah, well, I
Absolutely
know my
shocking.
impression is that Otomo doesn't want anything earlier than Domu translated.
Hmm.
He
But
did
even that you
incredible
can't
work
get.
before then, though.
Yeah.
I
Well, yeah,
mean, especially like the short stories and stuff, he was on fire, right? I mean, he just tried out a new technique every single one, and
yeah, his pre-Akira work in a lot of ways I find a lot more interesting. Like he did it feels more connected to film, and it felt like he was trying out a lot of things. And part of it, like if Akira was never translated, I'm sure that I would think that that was it'd be wringing my hands about that. But so this book he actually didn't write. It was done by a novelist named Yagi uh, Tokakiko, whose name I'm butchering, I'm sure. Um, and it came out in 1980, and it's called "The Mood Is Already That of War."
Hmm.
ooh, okay.
Um, yeah, so I'll share my screen here, and I scanned way too many pages of it, but
Oh, he's showing us his heart on.
Ah,
and I think that's a famous photograph that I don't remember where it's from, but it's of a man being shot during a World War One, if I'm guessing.
oh my
Hmm.
gosh.
Oh, so the conceit of this book is it's 13 short stories that are all about the start of a war and leading into the end of the war.
Oh
So yeah,
man.
this is the opening pages of it where you have this car going along that then gets pulled over, and the people in it are assassinated. And you see the classic pre-Akira Otomo's car light streaks on the left page there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
This
I
is
don't know
interesting.
why.
His figurative work is like virtually identical to his other stuff, and it looks like he had the same team working with him in terms of the screen tone and everything. That's wild.
Yeah, my
Yeah, so
impression is that he wasn't really able to work with many people because his style was so. You have a guy like Urasawa who has like a team of seven people, but
Right.
Otomo, at least when he talked about it in his art book, is that he only had like two different assistants he would bring in sometimes.
I just don't
I
get
mean,
why he wouldn't want this scene given that it's like of equivalent quality. Like, is it the stories aren't? I mean, I know Brandon can't read it, but I can't imagine what he would be so against people seeing.
It's the Tom Selleck mustache.
Oh, this is Elliot Gould. The reason I scanned this,
Oh,
the actor Elliot Gould from The Long Kiss Goodnight. He's just a character in this.
Interesting. As himself.
right. I suppose I'm thrown off by the mustache.
I think he's specifically, in the MASH movie, the Robert Altman movie. That's what he looks like in that.
Right.
Mm.
Huh.
Um, and there he is
Oh,
again.
wow. Look at that building.
Yeah, and I scanned some like these are some good pages, but like every page of the thing, is a Kira quality. I like this page because it has a photograph on the left hand,
Mm-hmm.
which
Who is that? It looks like angry Joe Biden.
I was saying it might I wonder it makes me think of John Wayne played Genghis Khan in a movie.
No, that sounds crazy.
I think it might be what killed him eventually because they filmed it on like a radioactive location.
Oh shit, really?
That might be a John Wayne Genghis Khan. I might be guessing.
Okay.
Wow.
And
Oh,
this
damn.
beautiful two-page spread of a tank.
Holy
Yeah.
moly.
Yeah, so all these are little short stories that kind of have like some of them are really clearly like a beginning, middle, and end. Also, look on the left-hand page here of the kind of sound effect, how it's like a slow build to the guy getting shot through the head.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he does a lot of really interesting techniques in these.
The smoke on this page and the previous one both look really interesting. Like I can't see exactly how it's done because it's smaller, but it looks like he's doing some really interesting tone work there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
think it's hatching and tone work over it. And he
like
has
a
the Popeye
sand
here.
eraser, sand eraser for the big areas and then kind of going in with like a razor for the
Yeah.
So that would do it. Are you guys familiar with there's a Japanese fashion magazine called Popeye?
Mm-mm.
So this looks like a parody of that to me, where it's
Yeah.
Popeye and it's like because I think it's called Magazine for City Boys, the Popeye magazine. So this is like a city soldiers version of it. But I didn't scan the page after this, but it actually has a little bit of an article about the character. And when some of the pages are in sepia tone as well.
Mm. And actually printed the color. That's good.
Yeah, he did a handful of two color stories in his early years. He's got a cowboy one that is, I wouldn't say it's a knockoff of Mobius, but is obviously like Blueberry inspired.
Mm.
That is
Oh
done.
yeah, it's SOS book, right?
Right, exactly. You have SOS as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way here. This one I just really liked the action on the right hand page here. How he's chasing a guy in a truck, machine gunning him down, and how much he kind of like is like bringing the eye around on the bottom panel to go to the next page.
I can't believe how much Shiro
Yeah.
I'm seeing in all of this.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like this is where Shiro's getting it from. Like the slumped car, like as it's
Yep.
turning, and the way the gun spray is moving the eye around the page. Yeah, it feels very Shiro.
Right, because if this is coming out in 19, because I think this was being serialized in 1980 and then came out in 1982. So it was serialized in a thing called Futabashi's Action Comics.
Huh.
And yeah, so because I think Kishiro started in the mid 80s, I think, publishing
Yeah.
stuff. So we're probably reading this and doing fanzines at that point.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
his fanzine stuff was all like 84, I believe. It's the earliest, 83.
Something I like a lot in manga. I don't know if it happens as much in modern manga, but just like the left hand side here, where he just has the speech balloon of saying nothing.
Yeah.
The like dot 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 dot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like that all the time, personally.
That's everything I have to say.
Especially when I'm around my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old at the same time.
This one is kind of the culmination of a chapter where this guy has this like fake, like a kind of a BB gun thing he keeps shooting at, and while a war is going on, he's out there just like shooting at the ocean on a boat, and they shoot him in the head. And so the end of this one has this very kind of Akira panel of him like taking a bullet in the head and just sitting down and nobody finding his body immediately.
But how about the solarization effect there with the inverted hair and skin?
Yeah, it's a cool look.
That's one of my favorite manga techniques is when they do that solarization effect. And I don't think I like the only person I really associate that with in American comics, I feel like Todd McFarlane did that a lot, where
Mhm.
he would have what should be filled in black, it would get a lighter color like that.
Huh. I've done techniques where I do something like that, and then you hit the black line with a color, and then you move it slightly so it looks like everything's shaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I've done the negative. Um, this one I specifically just wanted to bring up because I think it's a safe for work sex scene.
Yeah.
Because Otomo's a guy that you don't really associate with doing sexy stuff, but in this
Right.
one,
That's a very conveniently placed heel for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the place where he and Shiro depart.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I think Shiro, you can slowly see the horniness build from his work. This week I went through I was digging up a bunch of post comic Shiro and trying to figure out where he was going with stuff, and that can be another video.
Oh yeah, I need to see that because that would be a fun.
Oh, wow. I mean, whatever happened to Masamune Shiro, I think would be a fantastic
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, and I'm a big Shiro defender. I think that there's some later career stuff that's really interesting too, or later post comic stuff.
So look at that! Look at that background there. He's pulling the same. He's pulling out the same reference file that he's using in that horse story, that Western story
Oh, and SOS.
in SOS. Yeah.
I feel like he's one of the guys. Yes, I know. Osamu Tezuka pulled a lot from animation and film in his early life, but Otomo might be the manga guy I associate with of pulling from live action film. It looks like he's looking at movies more than other comics sometimes.
That makes sense.
And I
Yeah.
just really like this hippie bus.
Yeah, I was looking at those shorts that girl is wearing. He does a better job, I'd say, of integrating reference than most people. I think probably because his style is a little bit more has the appearance of realism a little bit more.
Certainly. Oh,
Oh
and
wow.
this is my favorite chapter in the book. There was one chapter set in New York with like a Japanese guy hanging out with a blonde girl in a bar, and this opening shot of just like very subtle. I assume kind of like photo. I wonder if there's a
Hmm.
photo, if he was just heavily referencing a photo, or if he was doing some kind of like photocopy technique for the background there.
Oh,
Interesting.
because he's got the city inside of the coat. I was like so caught up in the foreground. I was like, what's all that weird noise? Yeah, that's a city in there, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, and his version of New York is really cool. Like
Oh, damn.
Eddie entering the bar, and yeah, it really looks like a Scorsese movie to me. The backgrounds.
And look at the lights on that upper right. That's so nice. On the bottom right, too. Wow. Man, we're getting ripped off. Damn it, Otomo. Let us translate these.
Yeah. So,
Let us buy them.
Brandon, do you know if this one was included in that big retrospective box set collection that came out in Japanese a year or two ago?
My under, I saw something like that, but it looked like it just took a bunch of his earlier work and recollaged it. Was my impression.
Okay.
I don't know how
Interesting.
much of it was actual just comics. There, I will point out that on the top left panel there, there's a Fireball poster, and
Yeah.
Fireball was one of his pre-Akira science fiction comics he did.
Yeah, his
Hmm.
first serial, right? Pretty sure that was his first serial, like 78 or something.
Right, and maybe he didn't finish it if I'm remembering right.
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah, but you can see he's doing heavy. He's done a couple comics set in New York in the '70s, like he did Sayonara Japan, which is about like a Japanese guy that starts a karate dojo in Harlem.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And the art here, like the that tunnel effect that he's got in the upper right,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, but it really looks like he's either working heavily from film or from photo reference because there's no way you're drawing a New York like that out of your head.
Right.
No, no. They must have been. I can't imagine back then, like they would have been having to buy like tourist books or had to send someone over there. It's not like you can pull it up on Google.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and this is a panel that he recreates in his Kaba art book, the top right, where the cop is hitting the woman and you just see his hand in reflection.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's an awesome
Wow.
drawing.
And then the
That's
inversion
stunning.
technique again, where she stabs him on the bottom.
Huh. Wow.
Wow, that's really nice.
I love that calligraphic. Fuck you.
Yeah, in English. Oh, because he's got
Right.
someone in New York.
He's
Yeah,
speaking English. Yeah.
that's
Yeah, and
fun.
there's the OK in the middle on the left there too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's cool to see.
And this one, there's some scenes of the
What
subway
the
that are cool because you
hell?
see graffiti in it, but just this shot of the bridge on the left is
So you can tell that these are photographic, especially on that bottom one, because it's got that weird slight 3-point perspective that you'll get,
Hmm.
like if you're not positioning the camera exactly right. I see that so much in modern comics, and I think what it is when people use like Google SketchUp or whatever programs like that, it always has that kind of like slight 3-point perspective. It looks terrible to me in panels because it fucks up like all of the horizontals and verticals of a grid. Like this one looks all right, but that's an effect I'm used to seeing now that I identify heavily with like
Are you
tracers
talking
or
about the kind of angling of
Yeah.
the vertical lines?
Right.
yeah,
Because they're vanishing away from you because they're above the viewpoint, and so those are theoretically meeting at some
it may be that
distant
they're
point in the
also
sky.
just they're for engineering purposes, they're not straight up and down, and so I'm misperceiving the three
Right.
point. But because like the top panel is just a hardcore 1 point, and you got verticals and horizontals.
Right.
But I'm used to seeing that distortion now so much that I'm always like, bing, 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 tracer.
Right.
But look at that top left. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. This whole book is, and I didn't realize that when I pulled it out that I found this in a used bookstore in Canada for $2. The greatest
Wow.
comic find of my life.
Yeah.
I'm getting major Taniguchi vibes from some of these too. I don't know if it's just because he's another realist Japanese artist who's internationally influenced, who made stories set in North America too, like Hotel Harbor View, which is an early one, which would have been a couple years after this, I believe, or maybe
Oh yeah, and that made it into English too.
yeah. There's I used to have that, and then there's the one about the painter who is an assassin for hire when he's not forging other people's paintings. Benki in New York, I think it's called.
I
Well,
don't know that.
Fanfare needs to get onto translating all those.
Yeah, yeah. I would be curious. There's a lot of great Taniguchi out there. Another. He drew a lot of pornography actually.
I
Was
actually,
Taniguchi pre Otomo?
Some of it is, yeah. So I mean, he started. I think he was in the mid '70s or late '70s. So he might have predated Otomo by a year or two. But the ones that I'm thinking of are contemporaries of this or a little later.
Hmm.
one
Um,
of the things I had pulled up, like, because we were talking about like manga that we would love to have translations of. Speaking of Taniguchi, it's been translated, but it's impossible to get now. It's Ikaro, which he did with
yeah,
Moebius.
yeah. That's a weird book.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but it's like a collaboration between
Yeah.
like just some of the best, and it's not you can't get it. It's hard to get it in translation.
oh, this makes me think too. Carson, I watched one of your recent videos about uh, the Jodorowsky post-apocalyptic
Yeah,
weird.
Megalex, and you were saying that was intended for Otomo, or I read that out of the book or something.
Yeah, I think that was in the afterword. But it
Hmm.
made me. I kept thinking reading this that this is the only book I'm aware of that Otomo did a collaborative with a writer. So it would have
Right.
been interesting to to see what he would have done with Jodorowsky.
Oh, like yeah, yeah. How could you not want to see that?
Well, I think he's a really excellent writer himself. I would imagine that might be a frustrating experience for him.
Yeah, because I would rank Otomo as a better writer than Jodorowsky, but less
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, for
Right. What's
sure.
weird?
Yeah. I really like the silhouettes on the right hand page here, and this kind of cartoony, almost reminds me of like a James Heron drawing of the guy's face in the turban.
Yeah.
In the top left.
Yeah,
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 he's got a lot of range in terms of his uh, stylistic proclivities.
yeah, and he has these really beautiful, uh, like detailed city drawings, and every once in a while he'll have things like this page has a lot of just like very simple, jokey cartooning.
Hmm.
I find myself looking at this a lot whenever I just want to have like kind of shorthand for drawing rocks. Like the way he does the desert here feels really detailed, but it's not. He's not trying to break his hand on every panel.
Right.
yeah.
Oh, and these ones I brought up
Wow.
because the like I really like these two pages in relation to each other, where it's this kind of guttered. Like on the right hand page, you get this kind of normal Otomo thing, and then when things get kind of fast and he's got to fight these guys off, the panels get clumped together and they no longer have gutters.
Yeah, and that allows him to like group things in a different way. I mean, he's not taking as much of advantage of it as he could have, but like it relates those images more tightly. Like he could put that in the middle of the page and leave gaps all around it, and you would be seeing those as related more closely than to the ones around them, which is interesting.
It's interesting on the left hand page how he even gives a gutter between the grouped panels and the one below it. Like he kind of cuts into the panel on the left.
Hmm.
Yeah, that jaggedy panel. That is cool.
And then some of the
I feel like you don't.
directionality to the sound effects also really interesting there. The
Yeah,
machine gun spray.
Yeah, that one's because it fans, right?
Right.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's super cool.
and as much as I was saying that he's like a guy who seems to be pulling from film a lot, on the right hand page, the bottom panel of the kind of the samurai sword glint feels very 70s manga.
Totally.
And this is the final page in the book is to be continued next week.
Next four.
And they actually did a sequel to this.
What?
Yeah, in 2019. Here's the cover.
No, are you serious?
Yeah, I didn't like the sequel. It was interesting to see because I should have put some pages on here, but it looked much less. It looked like much more technical pen and thin lined. You can kind of see on this
Mm.
cover image.
Hmm.
Like it felt less like he was looking at film and more like he was just kind of doing his thing.
Wait,
You
that's
But
said
Otomo?
it's also the problem is like, you know, there's no bad Otomo comic, so it's also
Right.
beautiful.
it looks more like Urasawa though when you strip out all of the hatching and the blacks, like, and you get down to just the lines. Like I was looking at that, like who drew that?
Well, the earliest Urasawa is self-consciously, I would say, knocking off, the people that you might uh, the one with the guy riding on the back of the scooter with the I'm blanking on the name. Yeah, his first serialized comic. I mean, he is clearly intending to be like goofy Otomo.
Are you talking about Yara, the fashionable judo girl?
That's the one. There you go.
Good one. Uh, yeah, and Pineapple Army looks very. That was a Pineapple
Pineapple
Army.
Army. Thank you.
Yeah, they translated that. I think maybe Viz or
Right.
Lips or something, and that looks very Otomo.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the mood is always that of war.
Well,
Huh.
that looks fantastic.
Well, fantastic. Well, geez, man, thanks for sharing that with us. Um,
Such a thing that would be um, wonderful if somebody could go over with a thumb screws and talk to Otomo.
Yeah, that well, that was like the Sean you were talking about. There was like a 22 volume complete Otomo, or is that what you were talking about?
that's what I had heard, but I haven't seen any of the contents other than people just excitedly showing their Akira keyframes volume of that, which
Oh, that does
is
something fascinating about this too is like here's the printed book of it. It's really beautiful, but
Yeah.
it has this ad in the back of it, which seems really does not seem to fit the rest of the book.
Who does it say whose art that is?
I don't recognize it, but it's a strange it's a
Yeah,
strange. Yeah,
definitely.
such a cool book.
well, may you all find it for $2 a piece.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure that's totally going to happen. And I after we get off this call, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to go look and see what the content list is for the complete Otomo collection
certainly.
in Japanese. Anyway,
There is too. If you got his Kaba art book, this has a thing in here where it actually lists all of his published comics, which is very helpful.
Mm.
interesting. Yeah, he's a guy. We mentioned a few times in the videos, but I have this SOS collection. What this was like a dollar bin pickup myself
Mm.
many years ago at Half Price Books in Seattle. I think this was literally a dollar. Anyway, this is a really nice way to kind of get to know him and where he was at different times because you know, he's not he's not as he's not as focused on telling something in a particular style when it's just going to be one story. So he's got a story about this, these people trying to murder each other. He'll use a nice juicy brush line the entire time, and he's telling a goofy kids story, and he tries his best to use a flat line,
Oh, wow.
you know,
Really
illustration style
rigid.
for the whole thing,
Interesting.
and including pulling out all the stops to give us a weird like Otomo blueberry hybrid.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah, that's
That's
that's the opposite
fantastic.
of. Have you guys seen? There's one story we could do another video on at some point. There's one story that Otomo drew immediately after discovering Mobius, and it's like his most Mobius short story. It's about a guy who um, he's like a future guy who finds some kind of plant monster that kills him, and I think
Is
it
that
ends with like a rose growing out of his blood.
I've
Yeah,
seen
that's
that one.
Memories. That's the
Yeah.
name of that was Memories. Yeah, that one actually came out in English from Marvel, I think.
From Epic, yeah.
Yeah, I had that for a while too. Got rid of it at some point, but yeah, it was colorized all to hell in English. But yeah, that's a great example of like he was on this trip, as in holy shit, look at this guy who I have this kinship for. I'm going to make a story that feels like that. It's unbelievable, right? It's like
Well, and who wouldn't, upon encountering Mobius for the first time, like, be like, I'm going to go draw now. Like, of course, that's gonna, if you love drawing, that's gonna happen. And there's
right.
no way it's not gonna leach into you if you, I mean, everyone who's seen it, it's part of their DNA.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing too. I'm less familiar with the way it influences American comics, but you do see. I mean, I guess it seems really obvious the Japanese printmaking to Hergé on Tintin, and then I mean, I guess Mobius is pulling from Robert Crumb and some of the Mad Magazine guys a lot, and then that
Hmm.
gets over to Japan, and you get Miyazaki and Otomo seeing it and influencing their work. That kind of international back and forth. I don't know. I feel like that's something that might not be happening as much right now, which is weird because manga is so read in America. Maybe we'll see it in 5 years.
Well, I think now it's more like everything all hitting at once because you kind of described this like loop around the world of influence over a few years. Now it's just because of the internet. That's what I see in my students is it's very manga influenced, but there is an awareness of stuff all over the place.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think that I was talking about this with Ryan a couple weeks ago. The more I learn about stuff, the more I think international influence was always there, and it was always cross pollinating. It's just what happened before is you got these weird little slices, like more like message in a bottle style, like
Hmm.
Walt Disney gets a bunch of Walt Disney, um, you know, Tezuka gets a bunch of Carl Barks comics, things like that that are these like one little message, and he's like, I can do everything with this,
Yeah. And it's
um,
probably not even translated. They just are seeing the imagery. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about that with the Marvel stuff too, where they just stumble across a few Jack Kirby's and that's everything from there.
yeah, and you get an idea of it kind of does something different to that chain of influence. If it's not just like a pipeline, it's like this
Yeah.
one little thing that made it on a raft. Um, that obviously the culture of China in the '80s is a little different. It's wildly different. But there's a book by a gentleman, I'm not going to remember his name off the top of my head, called Iron and Silk is the name of the book. He wrote about visiting China in 1983 and being able to go visit China as a cello player, a white
Mm.
person English instructor cello player who did some form of karate, going to China in 1983 and visits a sculptor there who says, he's talking to the guy in Cantonese and saying, well, what'd you learn from? And he says, well, I learned from my master, Michelangelo. And the guy pulls out like a set of 12 black and white postcards of Michelangelo sculptures.
Wow.
Um, and, that moment seems really deep to me because like that's who this guy learned from is these postcards.
Yeah. And
Um,
and when like you can kind of see that in art too as you go when someone's picking up from printed material versus seeing something in person. It's that is an interesting component about how styles change. The other thing I've noticed a lot since the this channel started is the influence chain of bad reproduction, simplifying the art because like starting with the Alex Raymond stuff is where we got into it all. But then you look at the bad reproduction, then you look at someone like Steve Ditko that comes later that has the bigger, chunkier lines. And it's like, I'm not sure that he's adjusting for reproduction so much as that's all he ever saw. Because like I did that as a kid too. You see the lines are this thick, you don't think that they're shrunk or, whatever. And that's another one of those strange influence chains that I think is like understudied.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and people talk
now
about
we're
how influential the surrealist painters are. The surrealist painters wouldn't have even existed if there hadn't been mass production prints, limited color prints and things like that. Like somebody what's his name,
Ernst.
Mister I'm not a pipe guy. Rene
Oh,
Magritte wouldn't have even
Magritte.
painted the way he painted
Yeah.
if he hadn't had infinite access to screen prints and things like that.
Yeah,
He
he's a good
painted
example because he doesn't know how to paint. He's an
right.
image maker who kind of mixes and puts it on flat, but that's all he
Right.
knows about paint is you mix it on the palette and you put it on. Yeah.
It's interesting. I was going to say there's an interesting thing that happens where if you think of Alex Raymond kind of newspaper style comics, I feel like those probably all looked more beautiful in person than they were reproduced. But at a certain point, we hit a thing where the reproduction, like people were working more towards the reproduction,
Hmm.
and because I know in the '90s there was kind of like Jim Lee originals were almost meant to be really presentable and sold, but I feel like I mean certainly with my own work, there's a lot of stuff that just does not look, even the page I'm working on here, like I have all these sections of it that are just meant to like this is a word balloon I've done in two sections that I'm going to piece together in Photoshop. Like it's not
Okay.
meant to be seen in this like janky, you know, like I'm not doing the solid blacks at all because I'm gonna do that in Photoshop.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like less people are working towards originals being beautiful now than maybe in the past.
Well, and as you develop, like working with Sean has exposed me to so much just like general knowledge about printmaking, it's hard not to then leverage that. Like once you think about it as I'm making a book, yeah. Or like I just got the Dave Mazzucchelli Year One Artist Edition, and he says in the front, he has a big long essay in the front that's like, I don't know why they wanted to do this. I don't think about this as original art. This is just production art. Like the actual art is the collaboration I did with my wife and all of her awesome colors. Like why are you looking at my black and white production art? And I thought that was a pretty strong statement. You know, from you're looking at it, us, we'd look, oh my God, this is this treasure we got. Mazzucchelli's black and white. But he's like, no, it was never intended to be black and white. Fuck you guys. This is a collaboration with my wife and her colors, what she was going to do with the color drove the artwork. And I thought that was really powerful. And I think he's right. Like we are production artists. And I used to not think that way until working with Sean. And now I know I'm a production artist. I'm actually going to be much more powerful.
Right, certainly. But I do respect the want, or I understand the want to autopsy beautiful work and be like, show me all of the pieces of this. Let's take apart Batman Year One. Why is it so beautiful? You know, and there's
Oh
certain
yeah,
art,
totally. Yeah.
their checkbook probably like, if you like a Alex Toth checkbook was probably beautiful. You know,
Yeah,
every line they make.
absolutely.
No, certainly his letters were. It's insane to me. The juice he used writing complaining things to people in this perfect square formatted lettering.
That is just an intense dick move to be like, let me write you a saucy letter that looks more beautiful than your finished pages I'm critiquing.
And
Pure
it's four
dick.
pages.
Pure dick.
Oh man, yeah. We'll spend another video on that. Well, thanks for coming along with us. And if you have the ear of Mr. Otomo, and you think you can get him to, yeah, you let us know.
Yeah, quit hating America so much.
No, we're not saying that at all.
Let us have your work, sir. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, have a good one.